Florida. That's my hometown.
Yeah, Tampa, Florida.
My home state, I should say. Anyway,
where from?
Miami.
Okay, I went to college there. So
what school?
St. Thomas University. When you were there, it was Biscayne College.
Right. That's where the Dolphins used to train in the 70s.
That's correct.
That's right. Well, I'm glad to be here, Larry, and I'd like to say hi to all my Florida friends. Still think fondly of my great, the Sunshine State. And I know this is the big game coming up, and it's the first time ever a home team is in the Super Bowl, literally a home team, playing in their home stadium. And that will be very interesting to see. Unfortunately, there's no home field advantage with, I don't know what the limit is for amount of people in the stands, what the number was, but it isn't going to be like 75,000 screaming, mostly Buck fans. So it's going to be a little different. It's all been a little different this year, you know.
Yeah, it's going to be different. They're allowing 7,500
right,
people and then 14,000 fans. So definitely going to be a little different. But, you know, at the end of the tunnel, I'm just happy to be having the Super Bowl. You know, I like to look at the positive side of it. But let me ask you this, Roy. You've done lots and lots of interviews. I grew up watching you, you know, up close on ESPN, and you've done thousands and thousands of interviews.
And by the way, I sat on your lap many a Christmas too, so we have that in common.
Yes, we do.
Santa. I was doing the Santa Claus reference. That's okay.
Yeah, I got you. I know you do. But
when references don't connect right away, it kind of leaves you flat. That's okay. I understand.
Do you like being the interviewer or the interviewee one?
I'm just glad to be alive, brother. You know what I mean? We're all glad. We should all be glad to be alive for what we've been through. I don't have to remind people that 450,000 Americans can't enjoy the Super Bowl this year. It's a tragedy, great tragedy, and the magnitude of it's not over yet either. But so I'm glad to be alive. I don't mean to turn it too serious, but I don't mind being interviewed. I don't mind doing the interviews. So bring it on.
Oh, no, I was just curious because I know you've done both. You've done many interviews and you've been the interviewee. So I didn't know if you have if you had a preference of which one. You've been on both sides of it.
Here's the thing, Larry. I enjoy meeting people and knowing people. I've been very, very blessed, very, very fortunate to have been in this business 45 years, if you can believe this. I've been in the business 45 years. Started in Miami at television station WTVJ, which has now moved to the call letters have moved. They moved from Channel 4 to Channel 6, but I was also at the ABC affiliate in Miami as well. It's been a long time. I've been in Los Angeles since 1977, so that's what 44 years, 43, 44 years. So, you know, I'm just lucky to be around. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think it's more difficult today, Roy, to interview people than it was back when you did it?
It's different. It's very different. For one thing, people in sports don't need you anymore to be interviewed. They have their own fortunes. They didn't have that kind of money before. They weren't looking. They could promote something on their own websites now. They have their own vehicles for their own shows. Some of them have their own podcasts. I think, but on the other side of it too, there's more access to an athlete like we're doing right now. You don't have to go to a studio somewhere. You don't have to get on a plane to interview Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, who, by the way, I interviewed Tom a couple of times, and boy, he is really remarkable. He's a shy person. He's not essentially a public person. You don't see him in a lot of commercials. He's not interested in doing commercials. But Tom is a guy that I probably couldn't get now, maybe. Not certainly in one-on-one, or if I did, it would have to be just like this. But the yin and yang of it is they're harder to get athletes, but now you have an easier access to them in the sense of technology. So you can talk to just about anybody on a phone, on a camera, FaceTime or Zoom or Skype or this format, which I've never used before, by the way, till tonight. And it's amazing. You know, Andy Warhol had the famous line about in the future, everyone will have 15 minutes of fame. Now with podcasts, the future is here and everybody has a show. when I did the show for ESPN for 25 years, we were largely the only sports interview talk show out there. Things have changed. There has been some interesting discussions behind the scenes about me bringing up close back. Now maybe somewhere else. We're not at liberty to discuss the details yet. But if that comes to pass, I'd be thrilled. I love doing the show, and I've been doing podcasts, and I've had other shows here in Los Angeles that I've done. I had a show that involved non-sports people, musicians. Interviewed Burt Bacharach and David Foster and Debbie Allen and Andre Agassi as a sports figure. But I had a lot of in-depth interviewing here in Los Angeles. Also did the morning show here in Los Angeles. Written 4 books, including a book we'll talk about at the end of the show. Yep. So my plate, while it's not completely full, I still love interviewing, but I really got a lot to do. I had a lot to do. I still do a lot to do, and I just enjoy meeting people, and I like people. So I'm happy to do the interview or be the interview.
Now, talk about, the difference that I noticed when you did an interview that I loved about you doing interviews is, at least the shows I remember watching on ESPN, you were sitting with the person you were interviewing. Correct. It was almost like you were in your living room talking to this individual and you were together. Where now with the podcasting, doesn't it lose some of that feeling now that, I don't know what the right word is, but it's not the same chemistry.
The intimacy. There's no doubt. Right. Listen, we did a lot of satellite interviews, even in my era of up close. It wasn't the same because you don't get you could see body English when you sit across with somebody. You could talk in a green room before about some areas that they may or may not want to talk about, or even learn a story. I've learned a lot of information that I would never be in a publication in a green room, not this kind of green room. This is a green screen. But it's very different. It's not as intimate, but hey, you gotta take with what you can, the opportunities that you have, and take the best opportunity you get. And that means you've got to talk to somebody like this. I'm happy to talk to you. I try to do everybody's show if I can, by the way. I like doing. I'm glad that you have me on, Larry, and I'm sure.
So I'm not special.
I didn't say you're not special. I said that I try to be accessible to as many people. And I'll tell you a very quick story as to why. I used to do a piece. I do a live variety show. You may or may not be aware of that. I'm a performer in addition to being a sportscaster.
Yes.
This is in the non-COVID era, by the way. No one is performing right now. But I do a corporation that speeches, and I do shows all over the country. I've done over 2,000 shows. And these are the live show. I sing, I do impressions, I tell stories. And one of my favorite stories, this is going to take about 4 minutes, but I think it's worth it, if it's okay.
Yeah, go right ahead.
It involves the great Muhammad Ali. And when I first started this, I will come around to why I do everyone's show. Okay. In 1975, when I was 20 years old or so, I had a chance to interview Muhammad Ali in Miami. And then we went to a nursing home in South Beach, Florida. And this was right after the Thrill in Manila when Ali had beaten Frazier. He was on top of the world. And he was still young, relatively. I think he was probably 33, something like that. Relatively speaking, he was young, maybe not young for a boxer. Anyway, we go to a nursing home in South Beach, Florida to film a day in the life of the champ. And we go to this nursing home with people who are well into their 90s and a couple of hundred, maybe the one was 104. And these are elderly people, many of them in wheelchairs. Many of them have Alzheimer's or dementia. They don't really see very well. So Ali goes into a room with an old black man in a wheelchair. And he says, "Hey, old man, what's my name?" And the man in the wheelchair didn't respond. So Ali says it again. "Hey, old man, do you know who I am?" Nothing, not a reaction. So Ali starts to walk away. And as he walks away, I can see, and I was there with my film crew, the old man, like his eyes suddenly lit up, like something went off in his brain after all these years of whatever, Alzheimer's, dementia. Somehow he remembered something. And he goes, "Yeah, hey. And Ali turned around. He goes, "Hey, what?" The old man goes, Hey, I know who you are. And Ali said, you do? You do? Who am I? And the old man said, you are the champ, man. You're the greatest of all time. Can't nobody beat the champ because you're so great. And so everybody believe you and everybody love you. You're like the greatest of all time. You're the greatest. And I love you, champ. Now everyone's starting to cry. It's very touching. So Ali walks back to him and goes, hey, old man, you right. Tell everybody now, what is my name? And the old man looked up and he went, Joe Louis. Now, why is this funny? Or why is this pertinent to what you asked me? Because everyone started to laugh, but a couple of people in his entourage, Ollie's entourage, tried to correct the old man. Said, hey, old man, that ain't no Joe Louis. And before they could finish that sentence, Ollie tapped the guy on the shoulder in his entourage. And said, you come over here for a second. You don't understand something. Maybe his whole life, all this old man ever tried to do was put food on his table for his children. That may not make him a great man, but it makes him a good man. And no good man should ever go without his dream coming true. And tonight, his dream came true. He said his greatest champ in his life, the greatest champ he knew was Joe Louis. Well, his dream came true, my guys. You know why? Because tonight, my name is Joe Louis. Now, why is that important? It's important because we need to find a way to uplift anybody who has any kind of dream. George Washington Carver, a famous agriculturalist and inventor, once put it this way: how far all you go in your life depends upon your ability to be tender with the young and compassionate with the aged and tolerant of the weak and the strong and patient for those who strive. So everybody find a way to uplift one another. My point, Larry, is this. I'll do every show. I'll do every interview. I'll answer every letter. I'll give everybody a recommendation that I possibly can, as long as they're, reasonable people, to try to get a job, to try to get a show off the ground, to try to do a pilot for somebody. Why? Because someone did it for me. And I believe that if you pay it forward, as they say, you take what you've been given in your life and share it with someone else, an opportunity, just like Ali was doing with that old man. He was uplifting that old man for a few moments. So what I'm trying to say to you, my friend, is I do every show, and I'm happy to do every show, and I love doing every show because it makes me feel like I'm giving a little something back. I ain't that great, but I do believe in sharing what I was given, an opportunity for someone else. I mean, there are literally thousands of podcasts, maybe dozens and dozens of shows like yours. Not that you're not special, because you are. But we need to find a way, especially in this climate, my friend, right now in our country, to uplift one another, to make people feel that their ambition, that their dreams won't be easily dashed, that someone else there wants to support them because someone did it for me. It's the only way to live. That's my little piece.
And I appreciate that, sir. Thank you so much for saying that. Talk about your guests. I mean, so many of them. Let me ask, because I always wondered this about you. You had all your guests were tremendous, but
I don't know about all of them. I don't know about all of them, but we had
most of them. But did you have to yourself do that, or did you have somebody actually? Because obviously, when I do it and what I'm doing, I have to get all my own guests. Did you, when you're at the level you're at, do you still build those relationships and get the guests yourself?
I did a lot of booking. We had a talent coordinator, a booker. By the way, he works for Dan Patrick now.
Okay.
And he was wonderful, and he's still wonderful, and he's still my friend. But when it came to getting the 5-star guys, I picked up the phone, and I had to. Remember a couple of important things. I had the only show really of its kind at the time, up close, and before that, even a show called Sports Look. We may be rebooting it. Hopefully, maybe we will next year if we're lucky, where there's talk, as I said at the top. But I booked the people that I know some booker calling their office isn't going to make a dent in impressing them. So I told you that I did a lot of the booking, but we had people like Richard Nixon do the show. I had Miles Davis interviewed. I interviewed Madonna. I had people, Tom Hanks, Jerry Seinfeld. These are just non-sports people, but that they had sports stories. And I think when people saw really amazing people come on, they probably felt, I can't get into their heads, but it seems like they probably felt, hey, I'm not bigger than that guy. He did it or she did it. Why can't I do it? It's a much more competitive booking market these days to get a show. And I'm very impressed, Larry, that you do your own booking. But I can tell you, in my experience, it was better for me to make the phone call myself. Plus, I wanted to explain why I wanted them on the show. So, I mean, I'd have Tim Brown, the guy you just had just now, wonderful guy, Hall of Famer. He was on our show several times. Very wonderful person. I don't know if Timmy is still watching. If he is, hi, Tim. If he's not, somebody tell Tim that I said hi. It was even a kind of fun ride to try to book people. We would wait in hotel lobbies till all hours of the night when teams arrived and grab them into a room. And some of them were tired. Some didn't want to do it. But I mean, some of my best shows were people that we just waited all day and all night, like we were out on just some kind of detail. We had to wait until the opportunity presented itself. I remember speaking of the Super Bowl, we were at the Superdome in New Orleans for the Bears and the Patriots. That was way. That's probably 35 years ago.
Yep.
And I would be in the Marriott Hotel there, literally waiting at the bar for people like Terry Bradshaw, who wasn't playing the game, but I'm saying to get a 5-star guest. I said, Brad, I need you to come on. Well, now he's not only come on, he's come on half dozen times. And we've built a relationship. So long-winded answer to your question. Yes, I did a lot of booking myself. And yes, I also decided who was going to get 3 segments or 4 segments or 1 segment based on my experiences and what kind of interview I thought it would be. Some of them surprised me at how good they were. Some of them disappointed me at how bad they were.
And that leads me to my next question. First of all, who was the toughest interview you ever had to do?
Well, there's different degrees of tough. I mean, Bob Knight was tough because he was kind of nasty and aggressive, but he could also be fascinating and wonderful too. I mean, there were some moments with him. He was incredibly generous with his time. He took us on a tour through the city in the car. I went hunting with him for a special we did. He was tough, but he was, if he liked you or if he trusted you, he gave you whatever time he could give you, which was great. But then we had people who were not comfortable doing the show. Like Ted Turner came on the show one time. And he came on the show to promote his 24-hour music channel. People don't know he had it. It only lasted literally a day or two. And no one told me, but on the day we were supposed to tape, they decided to pull the plug on the music channel. So I wasn't told that. And the first thing out of the box, really high up on the interview, I said, Ted, thank you for joining us. I know you're here to promote your music channel. And he thought I was mocking him. And he took the microphone off and left. He said, that's it, screw you. So that was different. I had Barry Switzer, the former coach of the Cowboys, and of course the coach of the Sooners, threatened to punch me in the mouth once. But for the most part, and I like Barry, by the way. He and I became really good friends. But for the most part, people who did our show wanted to be there. And so they gave me the best that they could. And I hoped that I gave them the best that I could.
Do you have a favorite?
There's so many favorites and different reasons, but I'll give you a few. I love Wilt Chamberlain. I interviewed, I don't know, maybe a dozen shows. Some of it is on YouTube, even as we speak. He was unpredictable. And I use the term came to play. I mean, it's a sports term, but also a broadcasting term. When people came to do the show and they wanted to be good, there was no one better than Wilt. I had obviously Michael Jordan. People feel that he would have to be your favorite interview. Hardly. Not that he didn't give me as good as he could give me. But Michael was a pretty protected guy, not unlike Tom Brady, by the way. very protective of himself and a little bit wary, and gives you stock answers for the most part. I love Jim Valvano. Jim Valvano was a fabulous, funny, thoughtful, articulate guy. I loved having Charles Barkley on, who I just interviewed, by the way, for another Zoom show that I did here in Los Angeles for a charity event. He was never dull, and funny, thoughtful, and extremely candid, as everybody knows. Howie Long was one of my favorite people, and Howie's still a friend. He came on, we made him a regular. He would come on once a week on our show. Terry Bradshaw, wonderful guy. In fact, I would say that pretty much everybody, if you on a 1 to 10, 10 being stratospherically great, pretty much we averaged at least a 7 or 8. Most everybody was pretty good. But the really special people, the people who really knocked me out as interviews were people like Wilt and like, excuse me, Magic Johnson and Dr. J. I got to tell you a quick funny story about Dr. J. You might have seen it today on my webpage. We had booked Dr. J to do the show, and the guy who was driving the limo to pick him up at the hotel was not a sports fan at all. Never heard of Dr. J. We told him the guy's name was Dr. J. Julius Irving. All he heard was Dr. Irving. So he goes to the hotel, the wrong hotel, by the way, the wrong Marriott, and holds up a sign, Dr. Irving, not Dr. J. Julius Irving, Dr. Irving with an I. Not an E, which is the way Julius spells his last name with an E. So it's an optometry convention. And a guy who is Dr. Ben Irving or something like that sees the sign, says, I'm Dr. Irving. The guy doesn't know anything about sports. He goes, okay, great. Get in the car. We'll take you. We'll take you. Now he's trying to get to the airport. So he's driving. And meanwhile, this guy's trying to make conversation, the limo driver. So he says, so Dr. Irving, I hear you're quite a basketball player, right? He didn't know anything about it, right? So this guy goes, well, I played a little bit when I was younger. Yeah, I think so. I like to play. He goes, you're just being humble. I hear you were great. One of the all-time. I don't think I was one of the great. So he keeps driving. He's talking again. Finally, this guy, Dr. Irving, doesn't answer anymore because this guy's asking a lot of questions. Meanwhile, the real Dr. J is at another hotel. We didn't pick him up. He calls the studio. Goes, hey, where is everybody? So we thought we just got the message that you got picked up. He goes, no, I haven't. I'm still here. They get another limo driver to pick him up at a different hotel. And by the way, in the car, for the first guy, they're talking a little basketball, and the guy's from Philadelphia. And he goes, Dr. Irving, who's your favorite? He goes, oh, I love Dr. J. The driver doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He goes, oh. Meanwhile, he comes to our show. Both Julius Irving and this doctor meet, and the doctor goes, oh my God, it's Dr. J. We were just talking about you. By the way, what am I doing here? Where's the airport? We took a photograph with the two of them, Dr. Irving and Dr. Julius. Dr. J. Julius Irving, and they got a photo together. It's one of the funniest things that ever happened in the history of our show.
Let me ask you this before we get to this. That's a great story. I get to the Super Bowl with you, and then we're going to talk about your book.
Okay.
When you're doing an interview, Roy, there's a question, and then you wait for an answer, obviously. Okay? Number one, which is more important? And number two, is there a wrong answer?
There's no such thing as a wrong answer. There are some disappointing answers. There's some protected answers. There's some answers that don't get the questions really answered. But there's no really wrong answer. They're just disappointing answers. And there's some great answers, too. I remember one time I interviewed Barkley with Hakeem Olajuwon. And I said to Mr. Olajuwon, who was just a delightful person, I miss him very much, a sweet guy. And I said, let me ask you guys, gentlemen, I said, Hakeem and Charles, do you think you're going to heaven? I just asked offbeat question. So Olajuwon, very religious, you know, he's very thoughtful, and he's got this Nigerian voice. Well, I believe if my service to God is consistent and pure and trusting of the humanity, and I do good deeds, and I give to my community, and I make sacrifices for all of the good of man, I believe I will go to heaven. Yes, I believe I will go to heaven. I said, very nicely said, Hakeem. I said, how about you, Charles? Are you going to heaven? He goes, I don't know, but it's going to be a close. Vote. Now, that to me is a great answer, and that's only an answer that Charles Barkley would give. So the answer to your question is, questions are important, but answers are better if they're that kind of answer. So I asked an offbeat question, I got a funny answer, and I could tell you, I had so many funny moments. The late great Kobe Bryant, it's still so devastating for all of us. I once had him and Shaq on together, Shaquille O'Neal. So I said, Shaq, what's the difference between you and Kobe over here? He goes, oh, you know how he talks? That's easy. First of all, Kobe is more shy. Kobe is more of a loner. Kobe's more into himself. But me, I consider myself a socialist. And he meant to say he's sociable. He said he was a socialist. And then Kobe started chiming in. And the two of them, that was fun. I had so many great shows in terms of answers. I'm not saying I was great, but I like to think that we had some great moments. Of course, Jerry Maguire, the movie Jerry Maguire, people still say Roy only makes him cry.
Right.
I like to think that we had so many great memories, and that people who did break down were largely people who were kind of on the edge anyway. Like Rodman was one of the first people who really wept doing our show, talking about his little girl, his daughter. And the director of Jerry Maguire saw that moment, and he wanted to, believe it or not, Larry, he wanted to cast Dennis Rodman to play Rod Tidwell in Jerry Maguire. Originally, he wanted Dennis Rodman.
As the actor?
As the actor instead of Cuba Gooding Jr. But we actually put a number on it. We did close to 5,000 interviews. We think we figured out that was maybe 20 people cried out of 5,000, which is a 0.1, less than 0.1. I'm proud that people were open enough to show their emotions, but it would be a cliche, and a pretty lazy cliche, that people say all Roy does is make them cry. Hardly.
Now, let's talk about the Super Bowl a little bit. from a report, before we get to the actual game, from a reporter's perspective, and you've been to the Super Bowl, like you mentioned earlier, what is it like for a reporter the week leading up to the Super Bowl?
Well, it's obviously different this year because there's not
Right.
thousands and thousands of members of the media, but there's probably a few. Dozen, maybe a few, maybe even 100 or so, probably. Braving whatever conditions they have to cover their story. Obviously, it helps, even in COVID, for half of the teams that are being covered are local. Tampa, they don't have to travel, they don't have to get on an airplane. There's so many, it's so cumbersome now to get on an airplane in the middle of COVID. That's one thing. But when I was doing it, and did it fairly recently too, you're bucking literally 1,000 people, members of the media, radio, press, now, Instagram, Facebook Live, you name it. You're talking about, just like I said before at the top of the show, you're trying to compete for a guest that you have maybe no shot at getting, unless you're at a certain place like a Dan Patrick or like a Colin Cowherd, I should say. So it was tough. I mean, as I said, I told that story about being in Chicago for the Bears and the Patriots one year, and I just literally had to comb through the streets, literally bars, clubs, restaurants, to try to find some celebrities who were having dinner and offered them to do the show. Luckily, I was on the air with ESPN, so they knew who I was, and thankfully, many of them said yes. But it was tough. I mean, it was tough. It's still tough. And it's going to get tougher because there's so many vehicles now for people to interview others like we're doing right now.
Now, as a 7-time Emmy Award winner, when you look at this Super Bowl, what to you what storyline intrigues you the most?
Well, obviously, it's everybody thinks it's, understandably, by the way, it's the greatest of all time against the greatest right now, quarterback-wise. But there's so much more to the game than just the quarterback. But it's the easy hook. It's the marquee. It's a marquee from outer space. It's so great for the NFL. You cannot get a better marquee than the old veteran, greatest who ever played, 10 Super Bowls, by the way. I figured it out. 1 out of every 5.5, almost 6 Super Bowls Tom Brady played in of all time. This is Super Bowl 55. He's played in 10 Super Bowls. Incredible. So that's that angle. And then, of course, Patrick Mahomes, and I don't like to call him Pat because he doesn't like that. He might be watching. But he does so many things with the football. Shovel pass, underhand. He can do literally a no-look pass. I've seen him do that. I've seen him play the quarterback position like we used to see Magic Johnson play point guard. He's like a point guard in cleats. Plus, he runs well. He's had some toe injuries, as you know. He's got the turf toe, and he's had, obviously, the concussion issue a few weeks ago. But he looks like he's not too affected, and this week off really helped, I'm sure, too. So that's obviously the profile of this game, Brady versus Mahomes. But there's so much more to it than that. I mean, you got, Travis Kelce is a thrilling player. He's an unbelievable player that, unless you're really, not even really, if you're only moderately interested, you've heard of him. But, 70% of your audience, 60% of your audience for sure, doesn't follow the NFL that closely. They're there to watch the commercials and watch the game, and it's a thing to do. We don't have a lot of things to do right now, so people don't know who Travis Kelce is. They don't know about receivers and Tyreek and all these other guys. They don't know about Chris on the Buccaneers. They don't know receivers on Bucks. They don't know Fournette. They don't know a lot of the players. But someone is going to make a difference in this game, perhaps that we aren't counting on. It could be Ndamukong Suh could recover a fumble. there could be a strange call. Now, we'll get to my prediction at the end, but that's all everyone wants to talk about is Brady versus Mahomes, rightly so, understandably so. But there's something could happen in this game that has nothing to do with either of them. One of them could be a bad call. It could be a fumble, a turnover. It could be a fluke play. That's what makes sports so wonderful. You just don't know.
And, it's funny you said that because one of my questions for you was if you had to pick one play in this Super Bowl that you think could make a name for himself that hasn't necessarily made a name for themselves, who do you think it would be? And you pinpointed it.
I think actually Sue is a guy who is, I'm pretty sure he's never played in the Super Bowl. I think he's not. He was with Detroit, it was the Dolphins, now the Bucks. I don't believe he's ever been in a Super Bowl. And he's not the player he was. He's not the dominant Sue. But he could be a player like that. He could recover a fumble. He could have a sack. And the other thing, and this is important, Larry, and I hate to say it, but it's true. Until game time comes about, we don't know what could happen with COVID.
Yeah.
You heard about this story tonight about the barber for the Chiefs.
Yes.
Has COVID, and he was cutting a lot of those guys' hairs, and a couple guys already had in COVID protocol. God forbid, I say this again with a big disclaimer, God forbid, but what if Mahomes tests positive tomorrow or even Friday? We don't know. They test these guys every day. You don't know that COVID quotient could be a very intriguing one, and God, I wish it on no one.
Right.
But it's a factor that could impact this game. Even Mahomes is fine, maybe another player that he needs. They lost both their tackles, the Kansas City Chiefs, already to injury. What if I think it's the backup center is in COVID protocol. I don't know what his status is as we speak, but there's that issue too. It's not just an injury. It's the possibility of testing positive for COVID. That has never happened before in any sport in a championship game. Never.
And you and I both know if it does happen, they're saying they continue to play the game as if it didn't happen, as far as they don't delay the game or postpone the game.
No.
They said it doesn't matter. They made that decision.
If five players test positive tomorrow or Friday or even Saturday for the Chiefs, sorry, buddy, you're out of luck. We're playing the game. I don't think it's going to happen. I can't predict. It's probably unlikely. They're probably very, very safe and careful. But we did see a couple of players this week announce that they tested positive, and they're human beings, and it could happen. And the same thing could happen to the Bucks too. What if Brady, God forbid, tested positive? Just don't know. So until game time, we just don't know the factors that could impact this game that people really aren't talking about too closely right now.
Now, we're going to talk about your book, but you want to do your prediction first, or you want to talk about the book first?
I'll do whatever you want. Whatever you tell me, what you it's your show. You steer it.
All right, let's go over prediction first. That way we can stay on the same subject. What do you think of this game? Is it a close game? A young defense with some veterans on the box. How do you think this game ends up?
Unless there's a huge fluky kind of play, unless there's some kind of occurrence where Mahomes is not Mahomes for some reason. Maybe it's God forbid an injury or a concussion, or as I said before, COVID. I don't think, and I know this is a Bucks audience. I'm a Florida boy. My son's favorite team is the Bucks, so I'm pulling for the Bucks. But I don't see them beating the Chiefs with Mahomes if he's sound. Just too many weapons, speed, accessibility to a tight end in Kelsey, a pretty good decent running attack. Again, could be wrong. Again, if things change because of who's available for the game, it's a whole different story. Now, do I think Tom Brady can make it a close game? Could he be in position to win a game? Why not? He went to Green Bay and he did that. I just think this is a different animal. They took a big lead in Green Bay, and the Bucs held on. And I just feel Mahomes. I've never seen Mahomes lose a consequential game. I don't think he's only been around for a couple of 3 years,
Right.
but I've never seen him lose. I've never seen him lose a big game. He's not what they call choke or whatever you want to call it. He's just pretty steady. It will be hard for you to believe that the Buccaneers can beat them if everyone is on an even playing field. But having said that, I'd love to see it happen for the Bucs. I'm rooting for the Bucs. My son is correct. You know, we went to the Bucs facility many years ago. He just was thrilled. You know, he goes back to the days of Sapp and Keyshawn, and he went to those Super Bowls. The Super Bowl that the Bucs beat the Raiders. You just had Tim on. So my whole family loves the Bucs. If you ask me an honest answer, I just don't see it. I don't see how. Again, if everyone is who they are, they're 100% sound. It could be a turnover, but I think it's unlikely you're going to see much more than Mahomes just dominating. He just does too many things. He does so many things well, and he gets rid of the ball quickly. So pass rush doesn't seem to bother him, and he runs well too. I mean, he's just unbelievable talent. In all the years I've covered the NFL, I mean, Tom Brady's the greatest. There's no doubt about it. But if you gave me $1 million to say someone could break Tom Brady's record of 10 Super Bowls and all those championships, no one's going to ever break that. I'd say, well, the one guy that I think could, if he stays healthy, is Patrick Mahomes. He's that good. You saw what he did with the 49ers last year. The guy is Houdini. He can do a lot of things. And again, I don't mean to depress some of the Buck fans who are watching right now, but I got to be real, and I got to speak to it. And I also think 3 points is a little slim. That's what I think they're faking.
Right.
Three and a half.
Yeah.
I see it. Sorry. I see it between 10 and 11 points.
All right. Well, I'm going to bring up, I think I got the copy of the book. I don't know how many books you've written, but I know this one. Tell me if right there.
Oh,
is that the right?
That's
That is the right one?
No,
Okay.
that's great. And Larry, thank you for plugging that. And by the way, if anyone who's watching would like me to personally sign this book, it's so many great stories about the show. This is my third book. That's what I'm talking about. But what I do want to mention now, if we can,
Sure.
is this book. Can you see the title, Kobe and a Boy Named Roy? It'll take me a minute to tell you this story.
Sure. Go ahead.
But when Kobe Bryant passed away, it was devastating to myself and to millions of fans around the world. I certainly am not alone. But I was really depressed here in Los Angeles because I did the first interview with Kobe when he was 18 years old in Los Angeles, first interview in Los Angeles. And he tragically killed not 10 minutes from my house, by the way, in the hill, not very far from my house. I was depressed, and then COVID hit. And I said, man, this is a really dark time. And I had a Labrador retriever named Sammy 8 years ago. And when people know who have dogs, when you put a dog down, you feel like there's no pain like it, except, human being pain, of course, is tough, really tough. But when an innocent animal that you love, that doesn't know about life, and you have to put that dog down, it's devastating. It really crushed me to put this dog down. But I did, and I swore I'll never get another dog. Never, never, never. But when COVID hit and when Kobe died, I decided I'm going to get another dog, and I'm going to rescue a dog. So we went to this West Coast Labrador Retriever rescue in Los Angeles. I adopted a black Labrador Retriever, and I named him Kobe. And this dog has been so wonderful in my life. Again, I'm not any more blessed or more wonderful than anybody else. I mean, people who love dogs know what I'm talking about. But this dog has just filled such a hole for me. He's filled it so much. He's unconditional love. So I decided that I wanted to write my first children's book. It's called Kobe and a Boy Named Roy, with my writing partner, Charles Reskin, and my sister did the illustrations. And it's a really lovely book. with all kinds of sweet, children's. It's a children's book, but it's about, and this is kind of an interesting picture. That's an actual shot of me and Kobe walking in the morning. Isn't that a cool shot?
Oh, wow.
If people want to buy this book, they should know. They go to royfirestone.com. I will sign it personally. But if they don't care about the autograph and just want to go to, say, Amazon, they can buy it there. But they should know that the proceeds for this book are going to benefit animal rescue here in Los Angeles, Labrador Retriever Rescue. I would love it if people who are watching this show want to get this book, Kobe and a Boy Named Roy, and do some good. I got a call yesterday, and it brought me to tears. That was how wonderful it was. Because they do a lot of TV, that they're getting checks for thousands of dollars to rescue these dogs. And largely it's because people are seeing me on shows talking about my love for my Labrador Retriever. Ricky Gervais, the comedian, once said it best. He said, my Labrador Retriever thinks any idea I have is the best idea he's ever heard. And there's something about a lab, if you know what I mean, folks, if you have a lab out there. They're just easygoing animals. They love life. They love to be loved. And they're the greatest. I think all dogs are great. They're all tied for first. But there's a special place in my heart for Labrador Retrievers. So I wrote the book, Kobe and a Boy Named Roy. And go to royfirestone.com if you want me to sign it. I'll be happy to do. And Larry, thank you for plugging the other book, which we love the people to buy that book too. But this book will help benefit Rescue Foundation, West Coast Labrador Retriever Rescue in Los Angeles. And we've raised about $3,000 already to help save the lives of a lot of dogs. So I'm just thrilled beyond belief. I never would have expected this. I did this almost for my kids' families. I had my first grandson. He just was born. I kind of wrote it for him. But it's been a joy for me. And it's a story that I'm getting requests to do TV all over the country to talk about this book, not a sports book. And I never thought that would happen. So there you go.
Now, if there's any way you can, I don't know if you got something made up about the book that you can send to my Facebook, and I can put it all over the Facebook for you.
Well, that's great. I will just say again that if people are watching right now, all they have to do is remember Kobe and a Boy Named Roy and Google it. It'll come up. But it's okay. You can find all the visuals. You just go to royfirestone.com. I'll be happy to send you a picture of the book. But that's all over my Facebook page and Twitter and things like that. I got to tell you, I was very shocked at the response I got to this book, because I think people share not just the love of dogs, but people are lonely out there, man. And I say one other thing: if you're thinking about getting a dog in the time of COVID and you're not sure, I have 3 little words for you. Get the dog. Get the dog. Because you'll never be sorry you did it. You'll work out whatever issues you have. COVID or no COVID, it's the best thing that I ever did, from a loneliness standpoint. And I was very lonely and feeling very sad after losing my friend, Kobe Bryant, that I was going to try to do some kind of good. And I was going to bring another friend in my house. And I'll tell you, when you lose a dog and you have to put a dog down, you swear you'll never do it again. But I did. It's the best decision I ever made.
That's a great story. Thank you so much, my friend. Listen, I want to thank you so very much for. I know it went probably a little longer than you expected.
No, I love doing the shows. It's all fine. And again, if anybody wants to just contact and ask me about the book, go to royfirestone.com, click contact, or if you just want to buy the book, click books. Or if you don't want any of that nonsense, you just want to get the book, go to Amazon. But I prefer that you go to royfirestone.com because we can make a bigger donation to the foundation. So there you go. And have you made your prediction yet, Larry, for the game?
Yes, I actually did.
You picked you have to pick the Bucks.
I think, and I know this may sound funny, but I think the Chiefs are a little bit overrated. Okay. I think they're beatable, and the defense is not as good as these other defenses.
And they're a little banged up too. The Chiefs are a little banged up. They, as I said, their 2 tackles went down with injuries, and that could be a factor. And it's just been, if you look at this year in general, how unique it's been. I mean, we got a history here. We have a history with the Buccaneers, the first team ever to host, a Super Bowl team.
You got the first woman official in the NFL history to do a Super Bowl game. You know, it doesn't surprise me that the Buccaneers end up winning and
nothing would make me happier, Larry. Truthfully, as I said, my son loves it, loves the Bucs. We've always been Bucs fans. From Miami, I'm really a Dolphin fan, tell you the truth. But he grew up, and the Bucs are his team, and he's got Buck memorabilia in his house. He has a new baby. It would be a great gift for him. He already saw the Bucs win one against the Raiders. I guess was 12, 15 years more, maybe, I don't know. What
17 years. Yeah.
19 years. Jeez. Wow. It's 19 years. Unreal. But, you know, and Tim Brown remembers that only too well, too. But I could just tell you, enjoy the game. Be grateful for your life. Be grateful you have your health right now. Be safe. Please wear a mask. Please social distance. Don't be a wise guy and have 50 people in your house watching the game. It's not worth it. Enjoy the game. Keep it small. Keep it 1 or 2 people if you have to. But just stay safe and be well. We'll get through this horrible time that we're in. And maybe next year, hopefully, we'll be able to have a real Super Bowl with real crowds, real halftime shows, and pageantry. We just got to tough it out this year.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on Frankly Speaking Sports tonight. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. It's a pleasure. My hello to all my friends in Florida and all the people watching the show. And if you can, get the book, Kobe and a Boy Named Rose. Or That's What I'm Talking About was the other book that you just showed.
Right.
Either way, I love it. And thanks for being great fans over the years watching our show. And enjoy the game. All
right. You be safe, okay?
You got it. Thank you, Larry. Be well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
That was the great Roy Firestone, 7-time Emmy Award winning sports commentator and journalist. What